Have you ever seen a headline so shocking or unbelievable that you just couldn't wait to repost it? Frontal cortex surging with dopamine as the torrent of responses flood in. Like, comment, angry face emoji, crying emoji, 5 middle fingers emojis, flaming poop with crying, laughing face, whiskey shot, and rolling eyes. And inevitably, your smart friend, the one that went to J school at Columbia, adds a Snopes link to the long thread of comments, totally debunking the whole thing. Then you already know how easy it is to be sucked in by the emotional bait of mimemic warfare, a form of disinformation popularized and spread through memes, a form of neurocognitive warfare. You can call this fake news as well, though that terminology has been conflated and itself become mimemic warfare, ironically. There's a lot to conflate when you talk about the differences between sloppy journalism, bias or slanted reporting, and outright disinformation. But make no mistake, disinformation is no oversight in reporting, but rather a very calculated and highly targeted mental attack on cognition and intellectual freedom. The long war against terrorism, nation-state actors, malign influence, and fringe insurgents is fundamentally a war of ideas. Me and you, we disagree. And at its core, privacy is fundamentally the protection of ideas and free thought. The construct of privacy is simply protecting consumers' PII from breach or exposure is yesterday's problem, really, and it's obsolete. The future of privacy is about protecting a person from the exploitation of their identity. And in a new world of behavioral economics, trackers, cookies, pixels, social media, and data management platforms have created a rich corpus of meta-lexicons, personal intent, desire, affinity, beliefs, bias, opinion, food, fetish, jazz, jokes, tennis, toothpaste, music, and even your daily constitution. And if you think that any of this is protected, you should check your constitution. Americans believe we have fundamental rights to privacy, but interestingly, the word privacy itself doesn't actually appear anywhere in the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizure, and the First Amendment protects the right to develop ideas and beliefs free from observation and unwanted surveillance, free association, free speech, and free thought. But if we're being manipulated to base our thought, ideas, and actions on false information, then we've really lost our most important right to privacy. That's the right to think for ourselves. So what's driving the ecosystem of behavioral economics? I wonder if it could be money. That's not saying that the original inspiration and intent wasn't altruistic. Looking back at the evolution of social media and its mission to create experiences that connect people to people, connect the world. That connectedness is what has given rise to big data, sentiment analysis, and next-gen marketing that anticipates being connected with the consumer on a visceral level. So your personal identity is the economy, and your emotional response is the product. Dove's 2015 hashtag Choose Beautiful cause marketing campaign is a good example. I'm sure everyone remembers this groundbreaking campaign, a seemingly organic social experiment gone viral after hundreds of women from all over the world are forced to reckon with their seemingly fragile egos and make the hard choice to walk through the door labeled average or the door labeled beautiful. Tearful footage of the candid camera-like reveals and personal stories of why most of them chose the average door instead of beautiful went viral, along with the hashtag #ChooseBeautiful. It went viral because the company had extensive behavior data about the type of women most likely to not only respond to this marketing, but had in fact carefully crafted the seemingly spontaneous message to cater to them. For example, they knew that younger women of higher social economic status are most likely to opportunistically believe that they have the power to help promote change, to see the good in the world, and the most likely to change their behavior based on cause marketing. And I also knew that 77% of women compared to 64% of men considered a company's reputation when purchasing gifts. And that 36% of the women surveyed from a group of high household incomes above $50,000 reporting feeling guilty for having so much while others had so little. And they also knew that consumers who feel guilty about having so much compared to others enjoy purchasing brands that do good because it aids in alleviating such guilt. So one of Dove's major goals of the campaign, reportedly, was to see a 50% increase in Facebook mentions. And they actually surpassed that, achieving a 71% increase. So what's so bad about this? What's the big deal? A poignant message resonates with hundreds of thousands of women and inspires them to share that feeling with other women in their lives. I think I may have even shared this with my mom. Is Dove evil for targeting socially conscious consumers seeking out brands that do good? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact is, bad actors are using these same tactics to target consumers for their own cause marketing campaigns, to create an equally powerful emotional experience that will connect consumers through shared belief, bias, and opinion to influence, nudge, and even change their behavior. This mimetic campaign has gone viral several times. It purports to be an official LGBTQ org advocating the addition of the letter P in solidarity for support of pedophilia, and uses the hashtag #LoveIsAgeless. These seemingly legitimate nonprofit sites and social media accounts were debunked and ultimately attributed to 4chan hacking group. The purpose was to incite homophobia and anti-gay sentiment through fake sympathizer campaigns for child predators. For members of the LGBTQ community, there's little they could actually do to fight these false campaigns and character assassination that are fueling bigotry and hate crimes that quickly escalate to real-life violent attacks, like the one that took the life of 2 gay men in Detroit last July. And that continues to fuel the recent epidemic of trans murders across the U.S. And while there are laws and measures to seek justice for the physical attacks, there are no defined laws per se being broken in the case of the mimetic campaign. Since the dawn of the internet, we've accepted that we will live our lives with a certain amount of cognitive dissonance and uncertainty about the safety of the internet world we live in. We've in fact lived this way in early days of other industries. This is a story about the Morales family. The family had finished dinner, and Ronnie Morales was preparing to cut the pie they bought for dessert when he realized something wasn't right. Staring down at the peaks of meringue undulating like whipped oceans of whitecaps, Ronnie stared into the pie and watched as dozens of hands seemed to wave back at him. 24 hours later, the ER doctor at St. Joseph Hospital announced that they had ingested beef laced with LSD, and the officer confirmed this fact. But neither spoke of this as if any crime had been committed. And in the months to follow, though no criminal charges would be held against Walmart, the family would contemplate a civil lawsuit for poisoning them with psychedelic drugs. This is a mostly true account of events that took place in Tampa, Florida in 2014, when Eliana and Rayana Morales, aged 6 and 7, first took LSD with their father and his pregnant girlfriend, Jessica. 5 hours over, there's a Tylenol bottle that's hermetically sealed. It's shrink-wrapped and then packed in a box before being set on the shelf alongside dozens of other over-the-counter meds placed in the exact same fashion. And we have 7 dead Chicagoans to thank for this advancement to safety and tamper-proof packaging. Another 3 aisles over sits all assortment of vegetables, fruits, and herbs, all stacked in heaps upon each other. 0 packaging, and right out there in the open, unguarded. If anyone wanted to poison any of these, it would be as simple as walking into the store with a needle full of arsenic and just injecting them. These security gaps are governed by money and manufacturers. Pharma was $446 billion GDP in 2016. In 2018, the U.S. beef industry was a paltry $8.3 billion. That didn't make beef any safer than Tylenol. It just made the financial effects of the market's confidence more trivial. This is a good example of a cognitive dissonance we allow to coexist across all hemispheres of thought and industry, and the same risks consumers are unwittingly opting into as the acceptable default in our accept terms society that's driven by bottom line metrics and lack of options. We all say we care about privacy, but what's the first thing you do when you see something online you want to buy? You put in your credit card, you put in your name, you put in your home address, you put in your phone number, your email, sometimes even your date of birth. And we tell ourselves things like, well, nobody cares about my data, or I have nothing to hide. How many times have you seen something like this? And that's the pay dirt for big data. Junk posting, overposting, oversharing. It's a window into our souls. It's absolutely terrifying to me to know for a fact that Google is better at emotionally manipulating me than any of my exes. Now we've reached a tipping point, and it's critical that we redefine privacy and what it means to protect it. The focus has been on regulation and policy, but bad actors historically don't follow regulations or policies. And trying to enable consumer control over their data through consent management policy is a bit hubris. Considering the rights and ability to opt out is an elaborate Rube Goldberg that throws you right back into the mousetrap with the very next click. But protecting a person's thoughts, ideas, feelings, this is a much more existential undertaking, and so far there doesn't seem to be any way to opt out of being a product in behavioral economics. We're only beginning to tug at the loose threads when it comes to the incredible risks, but the unraveling of transcendental privacy and purity of cognition has been quietly unraveling in the background for years. Opinion, politics, truth, disinformation, computational propaganda, ideospheres. Many of these words are foreign to marketers, but they're just a few terms the Department of Defense has been using since 2006 when it commissioned the Military Mimic Project. And 14 years later, the impacts of fake news and disinformation has become evident to most, from election tampering to fake LGBTQ agendas to coronavirus misinformation. The agenda of these bad actors is to divide, distract, and dismantle the economic and social confidence in American culture and democracy, to infect opinion and politics and truth, and to subjugate freedom through the exploitation of privacy and perception. We might file this under surveillance, especially when we talk about activities from outside the country. My company actually took a small test group of 1,000 media websites and monitored them this entire year for just such activity. And so far to date, we've blocked more than 600,000 Russian trackers that were attempting to obtain data on Americans through American websites, 95% of which were small daily newspapers. More than 40% of those trackers were targeting daily newspapers in Hawaii. Yesterday's privacy concerns were discrimination, HEPA, data breach, disclosure of sensitive information, identity theft, retargeting marketing, and these are still very important concerns. But the future concerns for privacy are transcendental. Your ideas, your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings, your individuality. We have an awesome power, but we need to understand that the power to manipulate reality and behavior is not just a great responsibility. It is a weapon of mass distortion. This is where the industry could actually become a major player fighting the war of ideas. And we should do this because it's the right thing to do. But we won't. But maybe self-interest and self-preservation will be the needed motivator for radical reform. Consumer backlash and eventual abandon of an ecosystem that can no longer be trusted and is deemed an auto and exotoxin may just find itself living in a post-data social ghost town of the new opt-out world.